What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more hardcore. And we're back with a tune by Peckerhead, real name Daniel, a producer from Denmark. I've reacted to at least a couple of his tunes, I think, and indeed, my old channel about a year ago when the very early days of me doing reactions, his tune Taking It Back was one of the first ones I did. So yeah, he was born in 1990 according to the Discogs bio, so he's about 10 years younger than me, but it makes a point to say that he's maybe the last of like the younger artists who are still sort of championing the 90s kind of gabber early hardcore sound. So he's a bit younger than a lot of the producers and sort of DJs in the classic sort of 90s style, but he is still sort of pushing that style and continuing that legacy. So big ups to him. Like I said, I enjoy his tunes. He has a lot of hip hop samples in his tunes, and when I was first getting into hardcore, like late 96, early 97, a lot of tracks I was hearing had that flavor. I always remember the first time I heard The Ripper by Technological Terror Crew on Death Chant, and I was like, oh man, it's that old LL Cool J track. I love this. It's fantastic. So yeah, in terms of his kick drums, his bass lines, his samples, he just has a real kind of 90s flavor. And again, when I saw his bio on Discogs, I was like, oh, so that's kind of what he's doing. So that even though he wasn't sort of going to those parties in the 90s as like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, he definitely sort of is carrying on that legacy, which I really respect that. And so yeah, this is a tune I mentioned in a reaction to a Wicked XXX track, Maurice, that there are occasions where there's a hardcore or acid techno, any kind of producer that I'm fond of. If I haven't thought about their music in a couple months, I'll be like, oh, I wonder if they put out anything new since then. And I ended up finding a couple labels through looking for more Wicked XXX tracks. So I did the same thing here. I hadn't thought about Peckerhead in a couple months. Then I was like, oh, I wonder if there's anything new. And I found out he had put out a record late last year on a Dutch label called Prospect, although Prospect is spelled with no vowels, so it's like P-R-S-P-C-T. And it's called Acid Aries, the Acid Aries EP. So when I learned this, I went to YouTube, and sure enough, that there's, I think from the label, like hosting of all 4 of the videos. So I clicked on the title track, the first one, Peckerhead Acid Aries. I heard 5 seconds. I paused the video and went over and bought the record. And when this record starts in a moment, I think you'll understand why it just instantly set my brain on fire. So once again, shout out to Peckerhead, shout out to Prospect, and shout out to old school gabber, like early hardcore sound. I like different kinds of hardcore, don't get me wrong. I have room in my brain for different flavors, more old school, more modern, faster, a bit more sort of down tempo, whatever. I'm with hardcore and all its different alleyways. But it is fair to say that the early sort of hardcore sound, the 90s gabber sound, reggae or like hip hop samples, drum and bass rhythms, that hard old school kick with that bass line, that sort of like distorted bass line, that's where my heart like truly is. So yeah, let's get it. This is Peckerhead, Acid Aries from the Acid Aries EP on Prospect Records 2022. You just feel where it's gonna. Like light speed acid. It's like if you went the speed of light, this is what acid would sound like as you passed it. Oh my god. Also, that cymbal is just like unbelievable. I think we just found out what happens if you try to fly through a gravitational singularity. Like, I think we just went through a black hole and got crushed, compressed, torn to shreds by the gravitational tides, and somehow reassembled and came out the other side alive. So. Just an absolutely barnstorming, like, mental acid hardcore tune. But it's interesting because I don't know, maybe people classify that as acid core. I still feel like maybe acid core, I don't know, like, I've heard acid core over the years to the point where, like, I actually think I prefer hardcore with acid rather than proper acid core. But I don't know, maybe that is, acid saturated enough that other people would consider that acid core. But, like, my brain still wants to put that in the hardcore with a lot of acid, not necessarily straight up acid core. And the reason I say that is, it seems like a lot of acid core that I've heard over the years, it's all about, like, just overdriving and sort of like making sharp and wicked the acid as much as possible. That it's intense, it's very like electric, and it is sharp, but it didn't feel quite like some of the acid core that I've heard over the years. So I don't know, maybe you'll disagree, maybe that is acid core to your brain, but I'm still putting that in the like early hardcore slash gabber with a whole lot of acid category. So again, let me know if you disagree. But either way, we're going to go to, it's funny, I mentioned the Death Chant track, The Ripper, earlier. We're going to listen to Hellfish's remix, Julian Cobb, the guy who I believe has run the Death Chant label both back in the day and more recently. We're going to listen to his remix of Acid Aries, which it's hard, and in a way, maybe you'd say it's even harder hardcore, but it's more trancey, it's more like kind of melodic and atmospheric than this, which again, it's just like, let's go light speed through a gravitational singularity and see what happens. So, let me know what you think of this one, and we'll come back for the Hellfish remix. Peace.